So assertively dealing with anger, and you will, not very often does this happen in a caring relationship where you deal with somebody that's angry, but you do have it a little bit. I will need some paper in a minute where you'll have to write a few things down, but let me just start by saying people's perspectives on anger are shaped by their background and personal experiences. Some people think of anger as sinful and try to hide it or extinguish it, while others express their anger freely. And most people are somewhere in between those two extremes. Okay, some people express it easily, some people don't express it at all. Most people fall in the middle. Ephesians 4:26 says, "Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger." This verse implies that anger itself is neither good nor bad. What matters is how a person expresses it. Anger that isn't assertively expressed may cause harm, both to those feeling it and to those on the receiving end. So care-receivers at times experience feelings of anger, sometimes toward others, sometimes toward themselves, sometimes toward the situation they're in, sometimes toward God. I had a care-receiver that was angry with God about where she was at. And because of the challenges they're facing, they're dealing with anger. And when angry feelings surface in a caring relationship, you as a Stephen minister, need to respond to them effectively. And maybe the best preparation is to learn to recognize and appropriately express your own anger. When you're able to assertively deal with your own anger, you're much better equipped to help care-receivers do the same. So we're going to start by first talking about expressing anger. So the first part of assertively dealing with anger is to determine how to properly express it. Many struggle with how to handle their anger, and many times people express their anger passively or aggressively. So take a look at Focus Note 10, which is on pages 120 and 121. It describes expressions of anger. Take a minute just to read this focus note to yourself and just kind of take some of that in. So after reading it, you can see that both are unhealthy or unhelpful ways of expressing anger. So the best approach is going to be an assertive approach, which offers it truthfully in a loving and caring and gentle way, but still being assertive. When you're assertively dealing with anger, this kind of anger doesn't target an individual or a group. It really focuses on the situation instead of the person. It doesn't cause physical or emotional harm when you deal with it assertively. It doesn't belittle anyone that's involved. And assertively dealing with anger involves recognizing and accepting your own feelings. It also includes wanting to find a solution to what's causing the problem and to keep those feelings from coming up again and again. So when you look at Focus Note 11 now, which is also part of Chapter 13 in Speaking the Truth in Love, it contains some good guidelines for assertively expressing anger. All right, so if you read those, that's going to help with assertively expressing anger. Certainly if you fall into one of the other categories, this is really helpful.
Is this anger on the part of a care receiver or
both?
On both?
Mm-hmm. How you might be listening to their anger.
Okay.
And how you're going to assertively deal with their anger as well.
Deal with their anger.
Mm-hmm.
So their anger is the focus.
Their anger is the focus.
Okay.
And how you deal with it is kind of, but it's for yourself too. I mean, this is a little bit self-help as well,
Okay.
as you're thinking about anger. So you can look at it from both lenses,
Okay.
how you're going to deal with their anger, but also how you deal with your own anger is going to help you know how to
Outside of-
assertively,
outside
yes,
of our student
yes,
ministry.
Yeah.
how you're going to
Yeah.
handle their anger. So it's a
Okay.
little bit of processing how you deal with your anger and then helping the process for them, right?
Because I can't imagine me dealing with my anger in the presence of a Carrie Seaver, because that would be really bad,
Right. But if you know how to assertively deal with your own anger, you're going to be able to listen better
Okay.
if your care receiver has some anger struggles. Does that make sense? And understanding what anger is and why passive anger and aggressive anger are not good angers. Assertive anger is better.
I mean, I think you'd have to be kind of a running hat kind of person you if you felt anger during one of your care receiving sessions, because maybe they make a request of you that's unreasonable and it makes you angry. But I still think you'd
You're-
have to be.
You're very rarely going to become angry at your care receiver.
Yeah.
You're mostly going to deal with an anger issue that they might have.
I feel much better.
Yes.
Don't you think internally you could be frustrated that they're making more dumb choices? Or,
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Or not.
But
Just
the boundary is,
You don't hurt
Right.
them.
nope.
Like that model car.
All right.
They
So,
could,
go ahead.
They could also be not angry themselves. They could be dealing with anger around them too.
That might be part of the reason that they're in crisis,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Because maybe it is an abusive sort of anger toward them. Maybe it's in a marriage relationship where you're dealing with a spouse that handles anger in the wrong way, or you have a child that lashes out and you're dealing with that sort of anger. So being able to assertively, not fix, but assertively be able to listen using, helping use, stay in the here and now, be situational, helping them see those pieces, right? Hopefully is going to help them. Assertively addressing your own anger. If you can assertively address your own anger, you show care for yourself and others. And as you make a practice of addressing it as it comes up, you and your care receivers can assertively be addressed. Both of them can be addressed. So, thinking about receiving anger, the other part of handling anger assertively is receiving it from someone else. Being on the receiving end of anger is hard. Especially when you're trying to care for the person expressing it. So this is kind of that care receiver piece. You often do not have it where they're angry with you, but you might have it where one of my care receivers was very angry at the choices her father was making and had long-term effects from dealing with his anger. So that kept coming out, and how were we going to deal with that and reconcile some of that, and learning to speak assertively, into that kind of relationship. A care receiver might lash out at his or her Stephen minister, not meaning to, but because of what's going on in their life, you might end up on the receiving end because you're a trusted person. If this happens, doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means that the care receiver is probably struggling knowing how to deal with their own anger. So the best thing you could do in that situation is to stick it out with your care receiver, giving them space to deal with their anger, assertively listen and reflect. This is a great spot to ask reflecting things. What I hear you saying is, I did that a ton with that care receiver. This is what I'm hearing you saying. Can you tell me more about why? Can you tell me more about what happened? I'm trying to understand, reflect back to them. Encourage the care receiver to express those emotions. My care receiver had lots of tears and then accepted them, once we reflected back. And when the time is right, you can help your care receiver explore what needs to be done to deal with the situation causing the anger. So look at focus note 12 on page 122. Again, adapted from Speaking the Truth in Love. These are some things to look at as well when you're helping or receiving someone else's anger. They need to refuse abuse and violence, okay? And look for those things.
I think
Again,
you can
that's that.
even-
Go ahead.
I think you can even say some of these things
Mhm.
assertively when if you are on the receiving end, that you can say, my intent here is to be a Christian servant, or, I recognize your anger, even though I may not be the target of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it's pointed towards me right now, or I'm not sure how you'd say it exactly.
Yeah, it's
Something
tricky.
like that.
Yep. You can validate,
Yeah.
in that situation. I hear what you're saying. I probably would be frustrated or angry too, or I can understand why you're frustrated or angry. Sometimes a care receiver might be angry with God, might have nothing to do with you or with anyone else. One of my care receivers just felt like she prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed about the situation that she was in, and she never felt like God was answering anything. And so she felt angry about that. And then you have to talk through, without sounding condescending, that this was the same care receiver that I would give scripture to. You have to be careful because you don't want to sound pious, like, we're praying that God is using this to strengthen you. There's all different, but those words have to be chosen so carefully because you don't want to sound condescending or like someone that thinks they know something and you have no idea what their situation. You have to just be really careful. I ended up being more on the empathy part of it, where it's like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. It sounds so very hard. I will definitely be praying for this, that, we can see God working through this, because often there were tears, and you're not going to push back with, hey, here's a Bible verse, God's sovereign over all. And, that's not the approach, that you're going to take with somebody that feels like God has left them. So, one of the places, if it feels right, you can go toward the Psalms. A lot of Psalms have things in there that deal with anger, but make sure the time is right when you're going to offer that sort of encouragement. Like I said, it can be tricky. Falling on the empathy side of things first is always best. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that you're going through this. You can even say, I don't even have words to express, just be honest.
Maybe we could read a psalm together right now.
Yep. Would you be okay with those kinds of things? Dealing well with anger in ourselves and in others demands assertiveness. By choosing to be assertive, you can avoid hurting others by your anger and move toward healthier relationships. So we're going to spend a little bit of time thinking about experiences of anger. So that's why the paper is on the table. Taking a look at focus note 13, page 122 and 23, I want you to reflect on and write about a situation in your own life where anger has been involved. So after reading the focus notes, you can identify a current situation in your life that involves anger. This might be a situation where you're angry with another person or where somebody's angry with you. It could be one or the other. Try to figure out what caused the feelings of anger. Write down your thoughts if you'd like. What brought about anger in this? And what change do you think needs to take place to remove the cause of anger? What needs to happen for you to get rid of some of that or all of it. And then you're going to pray for God's help and wisdom in dealing with this situation. All right. I'll give you 5-7 minutes to write down, kind of working your way through those questions.